your convenience, I am Mahmoud to respond to the name Robbie.
All right. 1956's Forbidden Planet was MGM's first attempt at a sci-fi film. The studio was mainly involved in musicals at the time, but this thriller proved that science fiction was not only popular, but very profitable. It's got short skirts, clever robots, and more reverb than any tape deck can handle. I'm your host, Jason, and we are late to the party. So, I'd like to just get right into this. Old school sci-fi, super cool. This was so fun, but dude, can we start with Robbie the Robot? Was that not the best part of this movie? I mean, Jose's already got him up there right there. That's our boy. That's our robot. What a cool robot. I didn't realize what an impact he had on just robot tech.
Is it not the same robot from Lost in Space?
No, it isn't. It's the same designer, though.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. So obviously he's very cool, and this crew has just got so much to say about him. You can tell they're just chomping at the bits, waiting for me to bring up Robbie the Robot, but I guess we'll just move right along.
He was only called Robbie the Robot in 2 movies. This one, and then there was another movie he was in called The Invisible Boy. And that's it. He's shown up. He showed up in Lost in Space battling their robot. He's shown up in Gremlins. He's shown up in all kinds of things. The only time he's ever been named Robbie the Robot is this movie and one other.
Very interesting. Huh.
I did my research too.
Nice. Well, he was the most expensive prop on the movie. I think the movie cost something about $1.25 million, and it brought in 1.5 at the U.S. box office and 2-point-something million globally. So it was a pretty profitable movie. But I think Robbie costed about $400,000 to build and get moving. It's a pretty expensive prop. I can see why they used it for more than one movie.
I was gonna say that's why they used them multiple times in other places.
Right? You'd have to. That's a few shekels to put in for that guy.
A lot of rupees.
Yes. The music in this movie, wow, super cool. I loved all the sound effects. What did you think of the music, Isaac?
I thought it was fantastic. It was perfect for this type of movie. Just all that, it takes you into that environment. Like, it makes you feel like you're in space and takes you out of your own world and sets you in that world. And it was perfect. I was telling Nate earlier, I can't believe I never watched this movie. It was so good.
Nice. Is this the first time watching it for the whole crew then?
Yes.
We're all late to the party?
Me.
Not Liz.
Oh, Liz, right on.
Liz saw it before.
But I was very little when I saw it, and because it was like late at night, and I watched it with my dad, and I don't know, I was probably like 8 years old or something, and I just thought it was rad that I got to stay up till like 11 o'clock at night watching Channel 5 or whatever it was. The sci-fi stuff was on super late at night. Yeah, I got to see it to where like the movie plays, and then you got the flag and the Stars and Stripes song, and then it cuts out like it does in Poltergeist. I got to stay up late enough to see that, so I thought it was cool because of that. And I don't, it was fun as a kid watching it, but it has a whole different tone now as an adult looking at it and watching it. So.
Definitely. I liked the space crew quite a bit. I thought it was fun. If they were ever to do a remake, I would really like to delve into the characters on board a little bit more. Jose, what'd you think of the drunk getting his hooch from Robbie?
Dude, this I'm so grateful to have watched this movie, man. Like the entire thing. God, man, like from beginning to end, I felt like the whole thing was like an old school Frazetta painting. Like it captured so much of that, and like kind of Isaac touching on it, like the whole thing was like a sensory overload. I loved it. Like the music. I think there's a theory published way back then that they said that there is actually a sound in space. Like we can't hear it because obviously they can't take off their helmets, but there is a sound, and with that, like the whole thing, it just sucked me right into it, man. God, dude, I'm telling you, and having bought that toy at the intro, a while ago, finding it on the shelves and buying it on clearance, I'm so happy that I got it without having even watched the movie. I'm so happy to have it now, and this thing's getting ripped out of the box as soon as I get a display case, and it's going to be displayed proudly, man, because I really want to find this movie in a steel case edition. I want to show it to the kids. I want to show it to anybody that's going to listen, because like I said, the amount of love and work that went into this thing, it's a shame that it broke even in the United States at the time, but I'm glad that it found that global market. I'm almost willing to bet that Japan was probably one of the bigger markets out there because of their love for robots and for mecha and all that stuff. So man, dude, like I can't find anything wrong with this movie, and it's a shame that that it took this long for me to watch it, but I'm really, really grateful for watching it. So thank you guys for and thank you for the Wheel of Misfortune for picking it. So
Definitely.
Thanks Lego for getting it on the wheel.
That's true. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, you're welcome, guys.
I mean, this movie right here, I want to say that this movie is why we even do this show. Like, this is like the backbone of our concept for us to stumble across some hidden old gems. Isaac and I were talking a little bit earlier, like this movie, as far as sci-fi goes, it's better than a lot of the shit they made even in like the 70s. Like the sets were amazing. Like from the rooter to the tutor, it was great. The only thing that I could think of that I was kind of waiting for at the end, and maybe it's more of a modern thing, but I was waiting for Morbius to die, and then for Altair to be the one that was dreaming about the monster. I thought that would have been the twist, where Morbius is gone and it was really her. But that was the only thing where I was like, is it going to be him? Is it going to be her? Like, are we focusing on the wrong guy? That was the only thing where I was in my head like, what's going to happen here? You know, because there were so much blaming Morbius for it. But I mean, it was the 50s. They always go with the obvious thing. Then twists weren't a thing as much before then. But man, good looking out, Lego. That was a good one, man. I was all nervous that it was going to be the Holy Mountain and we were going to see naked kids or something. And this movie, and how beautiful was Altera? Like, we were talking last week. I was beating up. I was pretty rough, and I was beating up Kelly McGillis last week. But let's see, get some better ones in here. She was gorgeous, and like in that classic like 50s beauty. Like, man, those eyes, look at that. Holy smokes.
You want to talk out that id monster looked when it was hitting that force field for 56. What is it, 56, 55? When was this movie made? Jesus, man, that was so awesome.
Great movie. Clean.
Yeah, I was trying to pick out like bad parts in it. Like when I started watching, and I was like, dude, this movie is amazing. Like this, like you were saying, the sets, like when they come out of the spaceship, I'm like, all right, let's see how weird this is gonna look. And it didn't look weird at all. Like, it was so good for the time that it was made. It was a beautiful movie from front to end. It was good.
How about those footprints?
Oh, those are super cool.
Yeah.
Reminded me of Tremors.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the steps buckling when it went inside.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Or the doors as they're kind of like being pushed in, and like God. I was like, dude, that looks really good too. Like everything just looked awesome in this movie.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was. You know what? It was good enough to be like the effects were good. Were better than some of those like DC shows, maybe. Like modern, I would stack it up with like maybe early 2000s TV effects.
Yeah.
And that's like, 50 years. It was legit, dude. It was legit. I'm like, where's this movie been? Did they redo it and I got to see did I see George Lucas fuck with it? And then we got to see the one he fucked with? Like,
that's true. I was thinking it was remastered too. I was like, did I get a weird copy? But it looked awesome. I guess they had a Disney animator come in and do a bunch of the effects, like when he's hitting the force field and like a lot of electricity on Robbie and stuff. So yeah, that's awesome. A pretty crazy seamless transition for film to have actual animation in it, and that's pretty early on. So they took some chances with this one.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about the acting, like then versus now? Because there certainly was a little bit more like overacting, I'd say, especially in Morbius. Like he was really just worked up, and do you think that'd play with an audience today? Or
I think this is a question for Isaac. Tell us, Isaac.
Why is it for me? I'm not gonna do the voices today.
Oh no, man. That was your setup.
It has to come natural. I don't like being
Morbius.
Yes.
He's a theater actor, so he had to learn. When you're a theater actor, going from that to screen. As a theater actor, you have to learn to emote and to like project and to be a little bit more. And so I have a feeling that has something to do with more of his acting training and stuff like that, where he came out of, than it does with like it's supposed to be over the top like acting and stuff like that.
Well, and keep in mind that he's the villain in the movie, more or less, and so he has that villainous like appearance and villainous affectation. I mean, even when they go into his office for the first time, and I'm like, oh, that's the villain's lair right there. Like instantly, you're like, oh, found the bad guy right there. That's the dude.
Where's the alien pods?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, he's up to some nefarious thing right now. We're gonna find out. It's gonna be like awful. And then it really isn't awful. It's just more tragic.
Yeah, he was a villain, but it was not so much of I'd say a classic villain. It was more tragic. I went and looked up his name afterwards because I was like, it's got to mean something, right? So there's a Latin word, morbus, and that correlates with sickness or mental illness. So there we go. We should have known if we spoke Latin.
Going back to the other, I thought everybody did a great job acting in the film, except maybe the cook. The cook is obviously the comic relief. I kept getting like a C-3PO vibe off of him, just like this, awkward.
Wasn't he in the first episode of The Twilight Zone?
A lot of these guys were in The Twilight Zone.
The cook, I think he's from episode 1 of The Twilight Zone, where the guy's running around by himself.
Oh, in the abandoned town or whatever?
In the abandoned town, yeah. I think that's the dude.
The other thing is that it was a little off-putting, and it's not this film's fault, but every time Leslie Nielsen is talking, I'm waiting for some like joke to drop. Oh, nice beaver, that, and I'm like, it's like in the back of my mind, it's like any second now he's gonna drop some sort of like really slapstick kind of joke or something. But he played the straight man rather well.
I didn't know that was him.
Sold something, Liz.
I know. Sorry.
I didn't know that was him until the credits.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the credits were at the beginning, so you had.
I only know him from the gun films. Well, when it first started, I wasn't paying attention to like the names or anything.
And I'm kind of surprised that none of you cavemen, since it's like one of your favorite things is nudity, that none of you were upset that she was wearing a skin-colored bathing suit.
So it's the 50s. I'm not expecting that. Come on. She was
This movie wouldn't have allowed this movie to be released if they had shown anything like that.
Yeah, she was super hot. She didn't need that nudity.
I don't know.
Dresses?
I just saw another movie from the 50s, a black and white horror film, and the intro scene in it, the girl is fully naked, 100%, and I was like, whoa, it's shocking. But yeah,
What movie is this?
yeah. This one probably wouldn't gotten wide release.
Well, I think back to the original question too, like the acting and stuff. It was all of them did fantastic. I mean, and it's great because it's stereotypical. Like you could have taken that crew out and put them in a submarine, or taken that crew out, you know what I mean? It's there's a reason they use a lot of formulaic stuff in movies and in writing, because people can relate to it quicker into those types of into character tropes easier, so that you don't have to do a lot of exposition necessarily on the characters or who they are, what their motivations are. It's one of those like understood things that, you know, the cook, he was dressed like the cook. He had the short order cook hat on and the apron. You're like, okay, that's the cook. Like, and you didn't have to say it. I mean, they called him Cookie and stuff like that, but you didn't have to say those types of things, and you knew who that person was, and you knew who the captain was. Aye, Skipper, and stuff like that. So you were able
right. As soon as I
to-
heard Skipper, I'm like, oh, this guy's fucking Gilligan.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is that they, you know, it's that way you don't necessarily, like I said, you knew who these characters were without having to say exactly who these guys were and giving this huge explanation about their character and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, it was kind of cool that way. But one of the other things that I remember watching this time than when I was a kid, because Robbie was just the bomb back when I was a kid, I mean, he still is, was some of the religious connotations that are in it. When they're looking at the planet and they say, wow, God really knows how to make planets. That was like it wasn't like a God, it wasn't, you know, it was God. And when they gave the funeral ceremony to the guy that died, he had a Bible in his hand, and they were, you know, for the future, it was kind of interesting. Back in the 50s, they thought even in the future that religion or Christianity would be a thing, that it would still be something prevalent. And this is only supposedly 180 years from where we are presently time-wise. And things aren't as as optimistic as I think they thought it was, which I just, you know, it's refreshing sometimes to see that in movies where, you know, being a Christian and seeing those things portrayed and said, it was nice. And I really that I appreciate it now as an adult. As a kid, I'd been like, yeah, that's great. Let me show me more robots. But this time around, it was those little types of little things, I think, resonated with me a little bit more as an adult. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That's cool.
I
Yeah, there
couldn't
was
help-
also that line that was
Yeah.
something along the lines of this is why we need laws and religion. It's like to keep man in control.
It's
Sorry, go
at
ahead.
the end of the film. It's at the end of the film when the skipper's arguing with Morbius, and he's saying we all have monsters within us. That's why we have laws and religion.
Yes, that's what the line was. I thought that was interesting. That was that seemed like a very big point of this movie. I wouldn't necessarily call it the theme, but it certainly was like laced within,
underline.
which was really, yeah,
So
nice. Go ahead, Nate.
Could this movie be shown today? Like if you were, let's say you were in a mainstream college and you were doing and teaching a film class, could you show this today without somebody being upset that there weren't any females on the ship or any minorities on the ship and there's no brown people in the future? Do you think that would be, no, I'm just saying.
In the
you know?
history of film class, I don't think it'd be a problem because you're talking about history.
But I mean, aren't we trying to erase a lot of history right now?
I'm
You know,
not.
I
And I'm glad you're not, Lego.
I kind of see what Nate's getting at. You know, this film, I think, is the kind of film that's of the quality that anybody who appreciates cinema should resonate with this movie immediately. It's so well done and well made, and it obviously has so much downstream effect on film. But our culture is kind of weird today, man. I don't know if people could watch that without screaming about some perceived offense. It's hard to.
Well, I don't necessarily know about like a perceived offense, but you know, I can't help but think about like, I don't know.
All those sounds will take them out of this time and stick them in that time.
Yeah, maybe.
Because like I said, when I started hearing all that, I was just like locked into the movie, and I didn't.
Yeah, and that
wasn't looking away.
soundtrack was like kind of constant throughout the
Yeah.
whole movie. There really wasn't any
It
quiet
kept
part.
it kept you in there the whole time.
Like the
totally
rocket
did.
ship ride at Disney. Remember that
Yeah.
rocket ship
It
ride at
remi-
Disney? That was
The
always,
old
or
school
Space
one,
Mountain.
yeah. All those
Space Mountain stuff
sounds
like that's
reminded me
playing.
of that.
And they were saying too, like I'm not sure if this is gospel or whatever, but they say that this was like one of the first movies to use looping effects. So they would record a sound on a tape player and then play it back and then record it with another tape player, and they'd be doing this loop. And this is before synthesizers like the Moog and all that. It was like 10 years out. So I mean, and no theremins. Like, you want to talk about like a classic sci-fi sound, we've got like, and they're nowhere to be found. So they did this all with tapes and really interesting production. So it's a very unique sounding film, even though it does sound like those old school sci-fi.
My
Yeah.
dad has that as his ringtone, because we were sitting and watching at my dad's house with him, and and all of a sudden it would go off. We're like, that wasn't coming from the TV. He has that like the spaceship sound effect as his like ringtone that he does. Yeah, my dad's total like sci-fi nerd.
You know,
He was talking about it when he saw this movie in the theater when it came out, and he was
Nice.
7 or 8, I think,
Yeah.
when it came out, and he saw it in the theater, and he said that the monster in this scared everybody in the theater, like seeing the footprints and not knowing what it was and seeing the bowing of those types of things. You didn't really see stuff like that because sci-fi was okay for kids to see. It wasn't like taboo or anything, and so this was like the scariest thing that they could see. And seeing those kind of special effects and that happened, my dad said he remembers seeing that, going like it freaked him out. Like he was like checking things, he would hear stuff or he would see he said it was freaking him out as like a kid. But
Nice.
but yeah, everybody wanted Robbie the robot. That was the other thing too.
you know, you mentioned that this movie has a very sci-fi sound to it, but wouldn't it be more correct to actually say that sci-fi movies have a Forbidden Planet sound to them?
Yeah,
You know what
you
I
could say it that way. Definitely.
I have an inkling that this movie is where all that sound comes from, that theme that they have going.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're definitely right. I mean, there's so many things that I'd never realized that I was seeing for a second time, you know, from other movies. And it's like, oh, wow, they pulled quite a bit from this. Real quick, let's just talk Krells, and then we'll get into the buckets. Jose, tell me about those Krells.
That was the ancient civilization, right, that disappeared before the 200,000 years ago, and the whole. It's incredible to think that they were undone by their own technology like that, because that's the whole theory, right? That they created their own ids and id monsters, and that's what destroyed the civilization.
Yeah.
Okay. That whole thing, I was kind of like. We've talked about in the past about how science fiction movies and science fiction books have always kind of captured where we are in history, and one of the fears or one of the criticisms that we have about that current society. And I'm just interested in kind of looking at 1956?
Yes.
It was filmed a year, like let's just say it took a year to film, 1955, like what were the fears or what were the criticisms? Because it's kind of having this, you know, while we're looking at the future, looking at robots, looking at all that good stuff, At the same time, it does kind of create a fear in people, to fear technology, to fear how advanced is too advanced. And that's why I was kind of like, I look at today and we look at it and it's still a sentiment that doesn't really change. Like, people fear the unknown. And even when there's technological advances that could be for the betterment of humanity, we still find a way to F them up. Like, we find a way, like Evie, he wants to protect the planet, yet he can also use that technology to destroy stuff.
Right, right. That's interesting, man, because now you got me thinking, like, oh, it wasn't the technology really that destroyed everything. It was the unconscious mind that brought it out. It was ego. It was all these things, these negative thoughts that humanity wasn't dealing with. So that's really interesting.
And then the fact that they were saying that trying to convince him to bring it back to Earth, but he's the villain, but at the same time he says no because Earth isn't ready for this technology. So at the same time, while he's the one creating the id monster, he's also the one that that's his subconscious, but consciously he knows no, because we really aren't ready for that. It's kind of like the same reason why a lot of people believe that aliens haven't made contact with us, because we would freak the heck out. We wouldn't know what to do. We'd probably destroy ourselves just at the idea of another race of beings coming to make contact with us. So yeah, like, subconsciously he created the monster, but consciously he was protecting us, per se. But that's what made this movie even better for me. That it wasn't just really cool special effects, really cool sounds, really cool as I said, really cool sets. It also really made you think. And there was moments where I was like, man, that's freaking crazy. Like, it made my mind wander in a million different ways, and I love it. And that's why I was already on eBay looking for Forbidden Planet movie poster. I went and dug up the Robbie the Robot, and I'm just like, this movie struck a chord with me. And I think part of it is because of thinking about the Krill people and their own undoing, but at the same time, how did what were the filmmakers trying to say about 1950s America? Or because it was American production, right? Yeah, MGM, yeah. It was saying about that. So I don't know, man. It's just I gotta do more research on 1950s America to really have an answer for you. But that's what the effect of the Krill people and that whole story, that whole side story was really, really interesting to me.
Nice, cool. All right, buckets. Let's start off with Caveman Isaac.
10 buckets for me. Like I said, this movie was great. Total influence in the whole genre. It's everywhere, and fantastic film. So 10.
Nice, Mr. the Great.
Out of all the unseen movies we've watched on this show, this is my favorite. This is the Bullwinkle 10. This one gets it up. Brand new Bullwinkle 10. I just created it for this movie.
Love it. Very cool. Josh, Liz, do we got any creative ways to call this a 10?
No.
Oh no.
We call it a 10. Just gonna go with old school 10.
Old school 10. Keeping it classic.
Despite some minor things that I had with the film, and keep in mind that when we watched it, we were undergoing a sort of an ordeal in order to watch it. It was not a great situation. Sometimes we could hardly hear the movie. It was difficult to make out the dialogue.
That's just because we were watching it with Jennifer and Mike, and they were taking a nap on the couch, and Mike has sleep apnea. So we were getting special sound effects.
Even with all of that struggle, it was still a 10. It was still a 10. We had to endure much to watch it, and it was still a 10.
Josh might let me go buy it on DVD.
I think so.
Or Blu-ray. So if we find one, Jose, we'll let you know.
Field case, please.
It's a 2.
ask the guys. I rarely buy DVDs or movies. I'll illegally stream them, but
Oh yeah.
for me to buy, it got to be very special. And I'm telling you, man, this movie just, woo! It blew my.
For our 1 year anniversary, this is the perfect movie. Yeah, I think this is probably going to be the movie of 2021, like Xanadu was the movie of 2020.
Nice.
That's nice. I like that.
We're moving up the chain.
Forbidden Planet and Xanadu.
That's range right there.
Nice.
Oh, man.
Nice. So Jose, that's a 10 out of 10
Yeah.
for you. I'm taking it.
Well, actually, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, it's a 10 out of 10.
Right on, right on. It's also 10 out of 10 for me.
Out of 10, man. Way to knock it out of the park, Lego.
I'll take all credit for everything in this movie. It was all me.
Good.
Man, you got me whipped on it, man. I can't believe it. I'm so happy to have something from that movie.
I think we should get those suits of the crew and go do cosplay or something.
Oh, that'd be cool. There we
Fucking
go.
sick, huh?
Smart. It's pretty smart.
be
Isaac
Good.
has to be Morbius.
What's that? Isaac?
Can I be Elena?
Oh, man.
Yes, you can.
In
I'll
the
be
skin
best.
type, in the skin suit.
Love it. All right. Well, I think next week hosting is going to be my boy Nate, and hopefully he's got something good for us. I'm
Oh,
sure
this is gonna be
you've
hard to
seen-
tap, dude. Jesus.
Oh man. Well,
It's either he's ruining you and you can't get him back, or he's fucking hitting it out of the park.
No in between anymore, Nate.
Yeah.
Bring your.
all right. Signing off for Late to the Party. I am Jason,
I'm Isaac.
and we're out. Oh, all right. Isaac's out.
We're out.